You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Oh boy, who knows what's going to transpire over the next 45 minutes to an hour. It's our annual holiday special presented by Bet365. Around the table, Nick Alberga, Jay Rosehill, Carter Hutton, and Zack Phillips. And Jay, this should be a fun 45 minutes to an hour. Who knows what kind of holiday stories you have, man?
I know we've added one since last year as well, so I'm excited for that. Just a whole roundtable discussion with a bunch of good-looking dudes. I'm a lucky guy.
Oh yeah, all four of us. Thanks, Jay. Obviously, nice to be here. I'm like the guest co-host now, and normally I'm just the co-host, so I'm down the line a little bit, but I'm excited to be here. And 45 minutes to an hour, buddy. That's a lot of time today, but we'll give it up for you guys.
Yeah, Huts abandons the guest tag this year, filling in for Rosie. This guy doesn't want to show up for work every day, so Huts have to hop in there for him. But yeah, I appreciate you boys having me. First one here, first holiday episode, so thankful to be a part of this. I don't know, I'm not as used to being in a room with this many dudes only as Rosie is, but we'll see how it goes.
I'll just say, depending on how it goes, it could also be your last, man. You just never know what's going to transpire over the course of this program today.
Last year was pretty good. No, we kept it clean. It was nice.
Well, the big issue with last year is like the technology, and for those longtime listeners to the program always know there's something going on behind the scenes, and the tech was the big issue last year, Rosie.
I think I got held off the show. We recorded it, and I never even got used on it. So it was, but hey, those are bankable hours, though. We are invoicing for those hours.
We just dumped Hutton, and that solved a lot of problems. I think was the technical part of the problem.
Pretty much. So I'll do my best to navigate these waters. Obviously, a lot different when we're not in person, but we pretty much wanted to put together a Christmas special for you. I think anybody out there gets a bit tired of your family sometimes, maybe you want to step away. It's a perfect vice to do so. Also, don't forget, open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. Should mention as well, we don't have the live chat, but I want to give Sick Kids a shout out here, our Super Chat charity partner this season. I want to make sure that your question or chat gets on the show in future. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and third in the world. So naturally, we will talk about the Maple Leafs, but I thought off the top, boys, we have to start with like holiday tradition. Rosie, what do you guys do in the Rosehill family?
Oh, it's nothing too crazy. We had our last night. We had our kind of Rosehill Christmas, which is extended family and whatnot, which is always nice. Secret Santa, the normal stuff. Tomorrow, we will hit up the whole Santa thing, and it's probably the last year that my youngest is really into it, if you know what I'm saying, and it makes me a little sad. So we'll try to do her up kind of big because I like that stuff. And then we have some family over for some brunch. I don't know, I can't talk today. And then we go down to the pond and we skidoo, pull GT snow racers behind them, clear off the pond, and go for a skate and have some drink. So it's pretty nice, and the weather's holding up just fine for us out west.
Yeah, it's kind of like us here too. It's been really cold lately, but it's warm the next few days here, so it's going to kind of play out perfect. We do a little Christmas Eve bash tonight at my brother-in-law's place. Actually, my mother-in-law's gone, and I hope she never watches it, but it made life way easier because now we're just doing sweaters. We're doing apps. We're keeping it simple, right? Tonight, so there's less turkey, less ordeal. It's going to be nice. And then Christmas Day, my family comes over. We open gifts, and the kids. My guys are 5 and 7, so this is ideal. We're sneaking around. We got Santa on the go, full tilt, so it should be fun. We're at the rink today, so we got a lot on the go. It's always fun, the Hutton house.
I'm glad you've identified the problem there.
That's a unique start to this show.
Come on, Zach, stay with it.
My family stuff is usually just pretty much like heading over to grandparents, get everybody together, do Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and then head over to the other side, get that stuff. My favorite thing when I was a kid, though, is my grandparents live close, so they used to drop gifts and like the dog off and stuff earlier. My parents would dump me and my sisters off at the local rink, skate around for like 4 or 5 hours until they were done all their stuff, come collect us, and then bring us over. So that was a pretty good way to spend Christmas Eve as a kid.
Yeah, it sounds pretty amazing. And I must say off the top here, Zach, thank you so much for the Christmas gift. I have brought it up in a couple shows. A lot of people who watch us regularly know people call us amateurs. So I got an amateur Ave street sign in my background for the rest of life. So I really appreciate that. Ditto for me. Like, I really, like, the Christmas season for me has always been like the World Juniors. Like that's all I remember about Christmas growing up. It's sort of funny. You guys know, like I'm from Montreal. Never actually went to Montreal for Christmas. Never have through 35 years or 30 years living in the Toronto area. So just chill out with my family. My brother's got a newborn, a second kid. So just gonna chill out with the fam, chill with the dogs, and I like it really chill. I don't like something chaotic and crazy, but to each their own. I should mention as well, chaos and craziness. You want that, boys? The TLN Nation Vacation. That's coming up Thursday, March 20th to Sunday, March 23rd. First time ever from live podcast, winery tours to taking in the Toronto-Nashville game at Bridgestone Arena. This promises to be the trip of a lifetime, offering 2 packages, one with flights, $24.50 plus tax, one without, $12.99 plus tax. Hotel rooms are double occupancy, so keep that in mind. For more information on how to book, head on over to nationgear.ca or check out the link in our show bio. That's nationgear.ca. Rosie, I don't know if you missed it the other day. We actually offered up $4,000 and you can room with Hutton, his wife.
Oh, sign me up. That's cheap money, baby.
Yeah. I broke the news to her. The other day. I told Nick. Nick texted me, and Madison from the company said, like whatever you said on the show, it's working. We just sold a bunch more packages. And I was like, sorry, honey. It's a swingers party, I guess.
So change of plans, honey. We're going to have a random with us tonight. We try to keep an open mind. Not the first time you try to swing that one, eh, Huts?
To no avail, eh? Maybe just send profile pictures over and we'll decide, eh?
Yeah, maybe that'd help.
Yeah, you never know what's going to trail. Like, we love our chat so much, and we have to give you guys a shout out in the chat, including our bestie, Tammy. You just never know what you're going to get on a daily basis. I know I had a lot of people inquiring. They wanted to room with Rosie. Like, I thought that was really weird to begin with.
Tammy didn't say that, did she?
No, not Tammy specifically.
She's
no,
so
not her.
coy. She's so coy. She loves her incognito moniker. No one knows anything about her, but she's very active and she's got our attention. So I don't know. I'm feeling like somewhere in Tennessee at some point in time, someone's going to come in and go, I am Tammy.
I had a guy the other day, Rosie, saying he wanted to come to Nashville for the Nation Vacation just to square up with you. He wanted to go toe to toe. He wasn't happy with the entire Leafs Nation crew's outlook on the Maple Leafs from time to time, so he wanted to take you on and square up.
We'll end the Nation Vacation with me getting airlifted back to Canada. That sounds real awesome. Thanks, boys.
No, I think it's perfect. I don't know about you guys. I know like 17 people who have mugshots from Nashville, Tennessee for some reason. We're not promoting that. We're not endorsing that, but for some reason, dude, they'll arrest you for like touching somebody there. Like you poke somebody in the arm, they arrest you. It's wild behavior. I don't know if Shenner tells you this, but it's a lot different. It's a lot different in Nashville, man. They don't take anything.
But there's, as you shouldn't. I mean, I've cruised around there. I love it down there because there's just everyone's on the same page. It doesn't matter if you're old or young or a man or a woman or black or white. Everyone's there to have a good time. You walk in, no cover. Go listen to some unbelievably good music. And I've been there a couple times and I've never even seen like a skirmish or an FU match or shoving. Everyone's just like putting your arm around a stranger and listening to some great tunes. I don't know. I think maybe that's because they do keep a tight lid on that stuff, and rightfully so.
Well, bottom line, if you want to get pinned with us losers, please come on this trip. And you can catch a Leafs game as well. That's going to be phenomenal. We got a lot of plans as well for some live pods. You just never know who's going to show up at TLN After Dark. We're going to do that. We're going to do Leafs Morning Take. We're going to do some great stuff over at your winery, right? Right, Huts?
Yeah, that's right. That's the plan. We have a spot there, Love and Exile Bar, and it's our brand. So we distribute to about 500 places in Nashville, Tennessee. Kind of a labor of love. When I started, I have a partner there. Nick's got a chance to meet him, Tyler Elkins. He runs his boots on the ground. He's a beauty. Canadian guy. That's where we got the name Love and Exile. He had to figure out a business and fall in love, or he's going to get exiled from the country. So that was the way the business works. So it'll be fun. It's exciting to share it with you guys and be part of it. And I'm really looking forward to getting back down there.
I'm telling you, this Tyler guy's a fucking beauty. You guys don't know. You have no clue. You have no clue until you meet this dude what you are in for this trip. So looking forward to that. Also looking forward to the Nation Gear Boxing Day blowout. It's here December 26th to December 29th. It's time for the biggest sale of the year on Nation Gear. Here's the deal. 20% off every single piece of Nation Gear, hoodies, tees, hats, you name it. It's all on sale. Plus, if you spend over $200, we'll even throw in free shipping. Head on over to nationgear.ca. That's nationgear.ca. Gear up, save big, and look sharp. Repping your team at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take. Wherever you find your podcast, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And also don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. And also make sure you subscribe to TLN After Dark, right, Zach?
Yeah, that's right. That's where you can get Tammy sending catfish emojis to producer Vic and people wanting to fight me and Rosie in the streets of Nashville. But yeah, I mean, it's been pretty good so far on the After Dark show so far this season.
A lot of animosity, boys. A lot of animosity for a team that's 21-12-2, 44 points, second in the Atlantic Division. Why don't we start with that conversation, boys, and we'll get more into a roundtable convo. Just, Rosie, we'll start with you. Your general thoughts here at the Christmas break of your beloved Toronto Maple Leafs.
No, it's been solid, overall positive. I think we all get into a pattern of expecting perfection, and no matter how good they are, you always, you want them to be absolutely incredible, and it's not very realistic. It's not fair to the team necessarily, but that's how bad people want every team every year to be the one. But they come out of camp, Stolarz, Woll, unbelievable. Stoley steals the show. Austin goes down early. Woll goes down early. It was a bumpy start, but all things considered, with what they've gone through, when you stop here at Christmas and look back and say, man, they've seen a lot of adversity, a lot of change, a brand new coach, new way of playing, new systems. By all accounts, they're doing damn good. And remember, they have not really had a healthy full roster. And right when they were getting that full roster here recently, we're seeing some serious chemistry out of the third line, which they desperately need for that depth. Seeing Willie stand up in a big way. Mitch has been solid, and question marks around Austin, obviously. But again, you got to sit back and look at the positive and say this has been a pretty good damn start to the season. And if it's any build in the second half, I think they'll probably be in pretty good shape coming into the playoffs.
Yeah, Rosie, I agree with you too. The biggest thing for me is the way that they're playing in the first half, right? I think it's rare sometimes for teams to really find that, full ice game, 60-minute game, 5-on-5, play well, grind. And yeah, we see numbers drop a little bit off the rush and creating offense, but I also think that's the Chief effect, right? He's come in and he's trying to get these guys to play the right way and play a brand of hockey that's going to translate to the playoffs, right? Because I think any fan or anyone from the outside, you're dipping your toes in the water here, right? You're like, are the Leafs going to do this again to me, right? First round. But I feel like this year they're building towards something more. They're trying to play that brand of hockey where come playoff time, they're not just trying to flip that switch on and they're already going to have it. And for me, obviously the takeaway, you hit a lot of the pieces, but for the goaltending, right, I think it's been great. I think Stolarz stepping up, Woll being out early. Obviously, they're going to miss Stolarz here in the next little bit. The main thing is getting him back healthy and back up the speed. But I love what they've done so far. And the short time, maybe outside of these two games that just finished, I obviously didn't love that headed into break. But I think Woll's been very, very good too. I think he's showing that why they believe in him, why he has such a high upside. So far, I think a very exciting half because we know when we get to the second half, it's way harder to score. It's harder to defend. And I think the Leafs are already at that point with their game.
It's kind of interesting how the beginning of the season played out because I think it was Rosie and I before the season. I was filling in for Nick there on the morning take. We had Max Lapierre on and he told us be prepared for growing pains with the coaching. And, that was obviously expected, but it's a very different style of hockey as both Hutz and Rosie alluded to there. You're going to grind it down. It's going to be more defensive. There's not going to be as fast flowing offense. It's more north south. That's the kind of game that you're going to transition to. And we've seen some real growing pains in the group. I think the one and only thing that kind of is a cause for concern for people, or maybe something that every now and then sparks up in the fan base and makes people go nuts, see it in the After Dark show a lot, is patterns of past coming out, which they have had moments of. And it's things, just as amazing as the goalies have been, we've now seen both of them be injured. We saw periods where the bottom six wasn't able to score. We saw a couple of times where, they threw caution to the wind and said, forget it. We're not going to play defense here tonight. And those are things that they've done in the past. As long as they can kind of erase that and not make it their identity for the rest of the season, I think that this is shaping up to be the word I think I heard Hutz use many times is a different. But it's you got to get rid of those things and not let them be something that happens game after game after game. I think they're heading in the right direction after the first, 35 games we've seen. But yeah, it's an interesting start to the season on a new regime.
Yeah, I think interesting is the word I would use. It's always a fun journey when we all know this team is going to be judged on how they do in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I know Rosie hates when I bring that up because it is a process. And I do like the look of this team. I think it's a much improved blue line. I think their crease is much better. I think it was time for a coaching change, taking nothing away from Sheldon Keefe. I think Craig Berube is the right style of coach to have with this current group. And I think they made some really, really good additions. Now, naturally, can you put it all together when it matters most is the big question for me. And ultimately, we won't find out until the spring. But my major takeaway is that they've exceeded my expectations, because I expected turbulence, boys. When you ask a roster who is not known to play this way, to play this style, this brand, to buy in this quickly, it's been impressive. But we get those stern reminders, right, Huts, where it's like, you know what? There's a lot of room to grow with this team still, I feel.
Yeah, there always is, right? It's always a game of, I look at every other team too that has won, and they've gone through different little lulls in the season where you need to find your game. But I think it's just a maturity level, right? This is the takeaway I get from this team, where before, in the past, it felt like the message that Craig Berube was trying to send versus what the players were sending didn't really feel like it was on the same page. Sorry, with Sheldon Keefe. Now with Craig Berube, it seems like everyone's a little more galvanized in that momentum, knowing that where they need to get to. And the fact of the matter is, you have guys that are kind of playing for their legacy here in Toronto too, right? These are guys that know they want to win. They've all got their paydays. They've all got paid. They've made their money. Now it's at a point where they want to push it over the top. And I think adding a few key pieces for me, obviously on the back end, I think Jake McCabe is playing now in a better slotted position. He's playing so well. And then Tanev and OEL for me are the guys that are just really running that back end now and solidifying it. And then again, I think you have Morgan Riley slotted in a better situation where he can succeed. So for me, it's just an overall standpoint of just moving forward and continually growing. And I think when you add maturity in there and you add some guys who've been to the dance before, it makes a big difference, Rosie. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I like what Zach said. It's a ghosts of seasons past sometimes creep in. And every time they struggle, it looks like that, right? It looks like discombobulated on defense. Chief says it all the time, north hockey, north-south hockey. And they stop going north and they start pulling up here and there. And, you saw it the other night. I thought they played okay. But, I mean, when they really need one, there's just this cross ice to this little seam, waist-high sauce. And it back and just that kind of stuff kind of blows up in their face, and they get away from simplifying their game. And I know from playing with so many skilled players that they feel like a dummy. I'm not a fourth line plug. I don't need to dump and chase. I'm in control of the game. I feel better when I'm being creative and handling it the way I want to handle it. But there's that fine balance between being that guy and then following a system that the coach and everyone else decides this is the best way for the group to have success. And I think that you mentioned that they've balanced that this year, that there should have been some growing pains asking for I think Chiefs asking them to play a pretty different style of play than they have been playing. And you would think there would be growing pains, and they have gone through so many injuries and had adversity. So I think, again, yeah, if they can get away from that old school stuff of when they just kind of say, I'm going off the beaten path here. I'm straying from the system, from what we're trying to do, and I'm going to try to do it myself here and go back to what I did in junior or peewee or whatever the hell it is. It kind of bites them in the ass. And just collectively, if they learn and ingrain the system into them, they still got a lot of runway to do that. I think that's the key to having success, because every team that does well in the playoffs, they're so on the same bloody page going into it that it's just like there's no individuals. It's just like we are the Florida Panthers, and they just go do Florida Panther hockey and they have success. The Leafs need to adopt that, and I just hope they've learned enough from the past that they realize they have to come together and actually do that.
The other thing with like the room for improvement is I would much rather look at game 35 and say we have room for improvement and be in that position than be talking about right now heading into Christmas saying, wow, we're playing perfect hockey. Maybe it's just like the jaded Leafs fan view in me, but it would always feel like there's something around the corner where this is going to fall off. And the other thing that I kind of always reminds me of is like that season in the bubble when they lost to Montreal in the first round. They were rocking all season, right? And then at the very end, like a month ahead of playoffs, a month and a half ahead of playoffs, kind of started to tail off. You don't have time to get things back on track. Yeah, you've got room for improvement right now. I think that's fine. There's areas we can identify here right now, and I think the things that we've identified as well are not as drastic as years past. We're not panicking about, do we need a goaltender? Maybe do you need a guy because you have injuries? Okay, that's a different conversation than, holy shit, our guy can't save the puck. Do we need top 4 D-man? Well, last year, who we were going out and trying to get? Chris Tanev. He's here. You've got Tanev and McCabe and OEL, guys to support Morgan Riley and filter into the rest of the lineup. Like these things that we're looking at for improvement, they don't feel as massive as years past. The only thing that actually is terrifying here, Nick, as well, and I'm sure we'll talk about throughout the course of this, is well, it would be the power play.
Yeah, yeah.
I haven't talked about that
It's
yet.
a nightmare. It's a nightmare, and I mean I'm not even gonna put that like be soft about that. It is. That's the one thing that I look at. It's like not just room for improvement. That needs to change. Like it needs to be fixed entirely. But outside of that, yeah, things we can fix. But I'm not really going, oh man, this team is nowhere close right now.
Utter dog shit is the way I would describe the power play. And it was sort of funny. The first PP post Austin Matthews going out again, obviously they score a cross ice pass from Marner to JT on the doorstep. And it's like, it just makes no sense. I will add too, Lane Lambert's a guy who never gets praised. The PK has been incredible this year, guys. They're top 10 in the league right now, which is an excellent development. Let's talk biggest surprises, biggest disappointments. Rosie, we'll start with you in terms of biggest surprise for you thus far this season.
I always get the easy stuff going first and just pick it clean for those
On
guys
purpose,
to
Rosie, on
grind.
purpose.
Because my brain don't work as good as others.
Yes, exactly.
I think it's Stoli to me. We didn't know what we had in the goaltending situation. If you go back to the summertime when they signed these guys, we're like, oh, great, we get a Band-Aid with no experience and a guy who's never been able to step up and be the starting goalie. Oh, that's going to be our answer, right? And I'm like, hold on. Wool has got so much potential. It's gross. My favorite thing about him is his mind and his mental state. And I'm probably stepping over Carter's toes here, being a tendy. But to me, when Stoli got in there and it's just like 3 games, then 5 games, and we're all like, are we seeing this? Like this guy stops everything, gives us a chance to win every night. He is the talk of the game after game after game after game. We're like, is this guy gonna have a big hiccup? Like, is this just too big for him? And just nope, he's just rock solid. And that was even in the face of a ton of pressure after Wool got hurt, and he really had to step up. And it was like, yeah, now it's not the luxury of having a guy behind you to fill in if need be. It's all on you, and he still stayed the course. It was impressive. So I was pretty happy to see that this season so far.
Yeah, I think you're bang on there. Obviously, I wasn't going to talk about the goalies, Rosie, so I'm glad you did.
Woo!
That's what I would talk about, right? But no, honestly, he's been awesome, and I agree with you. I think he's been the number one guy. But for me, I've been a big fan of OEL's game. I think he is a guy who was a star for a long time in this league, and his game dropped off a lot, right? And then he goes down to Florida. It's almost like he redefined his game, right? I had a conversation with Shane Doan when I was in Toronto watching the game. I got to know Shane a little bit when I was in Arizona, and he's a big backer of OEL. He was kind of one of the guys that he mentioned to me about how he redefined his game, and he thinks he's been that difference maker now for the Leafs, and the way he's come in there, solidified that back end. And again, we talk a lot about slotting, right? And I think that's such an important thing at every level, let alone like when you're younger. If you're kind of playing outside your role, it's tricky, right? Where now they have guys playing in the right segment. And I think to stagger off of what you said, Rosie, having guys like him and Tanev and McCabe, 3 guys that have been very consistent, it makes it so predictable for a goalie. And that makes it so much easier knowing when you're going to the rink what your job is, what the D-man's job is. And yes, there's always going to be breakdowns. There's going to be chances that are unpredictable, but more consistency and more structure just makes everybody thrive more. And I think that's what I'm seeing now from this D-core and goaltending. And it starts with forwards too. It's a whole unit, but OEL would be the guy for me that after a cup run and, winning a cup, and he's played for so long, he's over 1,000 games now. He's made his money to still be grinding and playing the way he's playing is very impressive for me.
OEL has been like such a stabilizing factor to watch back there. Every time he goes on the ice, I feel confident with him out there, with the puck in defensive situations. Like it seems like he's always making the right read. He's great in the offensive zone. He was definitely high up on my list. One of you guys have both brought up new players on the team. One guy to me that's kind of been surprising, and I mean this in the best way possible, but is John Tavares. Johnny T kind of has found a way here to like turn back the clock. I don't know if it was the amulet or whatever the hell is going on with him, but at the beginning of the season, in all honesty, like I was thinking we might have the season from hell where it's going to be can't find offense. Berube comes in. People in the fan base are going to turn quickly. This is a scoring team. Why don't these guys score? JT looked like he had a piano on his back when he was going up and down the ice. And now he's flying. Obviously, yeah, you might look and say, hey, we could get some support in some of these roles, maybe improve on a center or help somebody out in some of those positions. But like, JT has elevated his game and kind of eased a lot of the questions or frustrations the fan base had ahead of time. And basically just made it like a non-factor, a non-issue of him in there, whether it's on the power play, if it's his play at 5-on-5, if it's how he plays with Pacioretty, who's been another guy who was a great addition so far this offseason. But like Johnny T has been outstanding. He's taken this change in captaincy in stride, and I was worried that he was going to age poorly, and he's surprised me in terms of how well he's performed so far this season.
I like it. I mean, there's a variety of different routes you can go. I'm going to go a bit off the board and just a guy who really wasn't on the radar, and that's Max Pacioretty, right? A lot of doubters, a lot of haters coming into the season. What's this guy going to bring? Well, he's the most physical guy on the team at the age of 36, where he blows up a guy every single game. And I like the fact that he can gel in that top six. I know he was banged up earlier this season. He's played 22 games. He has 5 goals. 5 assists, 10 points. I mean, that's not too shabby for a guy at this point in his career, but it's more the intangibles that a Pacioretty brings to the table, where it's not just the offense, but it's how physical the guy is, how nasty he plays. And again, if you look at the track record of Pacioretty, he's never really played this way. And I think it's just another example of a guy who's fully bought into what Craig Berube is selling. And it's pretty clear. I mean, they told him, this is the way we need you to play if you're going to be successful and be signed by this hockey club. And I think he's exceeded expectations so far. In terms of disappointments, I'll start with this, guys. Zach, we'll go to you next. I'm going to leave Robertson probably for Zach here. I'm going to go with Yanni Hakanpää. For all the conversation about Hakanpää going into this season, how stabilizing this guy could be, he's played 2 games. This is John Klingberg 2.0. And maybe it's unfair to pick on Hakanpää because it's tough to stay healthy sometimes. A variety of different players and routes you can go with this conversation, but just more so the hoopla, the convo around Hakanpää. Have barely seen the guy play, so he's probably my biggest disappointment thus far. Zach, over to you.
Yeah. You're gonna sewer me. The Christmas that's gonna go out the window is gonna be people like, fuck this guy, get him off the screen. He's played really well the last couple of games, which makes this a little bit more difficult to kind of do right now. But yeah, it is Nick Robertson for me. He asked for the trade in the summer. He basically said, I'm not getting my chances. I'm not getting where I think I need to be, et cetera, et cetera. I'm obviously kind of just assuming that was the conversation there, but I think we all are on the same page of that one. They can't get him a trade. They can't find a partner. And it's like, okay, well, if you want to play in the NHL, you want to find a way, or you want to get out of here, you're going to have to show us in the preseason. And then he forced his way onto this roster with how he played in the preseason. I think he has 5 goals in 3 consecutive games, or in 3 games there over the course of the 3 games. And it was like, oh man, like these guys on the Leafs Nation, they're the biggest morons ever counting this guy out. Goes into the regular season. I think he had 1 assist through 19 games. Like, I don't care how you shake it up. I don't care what excuses you try to give that guy. Oh, he played with these guys. He was in this positioning. No, you think you're a goal scorer. You think you're a guy who can generate offense. Generate offense. Like, I don't need a 1 assist in 19 games, especially when you're lacking other areas of the game. That was one thing that was frustrating. Now, the sewer job is that he has turned it around the last 4 games here, and he's looking better. But overall body of work for me, if we're having this conversation, it has been Nick Robertson, just based on what he kind of led us to believe he was or could be this year.
Yeah, and if we're going to go disappointing, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out Ryan Reeves this year. I mean, when you signed him, it's like, okay, why are we signing him? Well, we want a major intimidation factor. We want to have a physical presence in there. We want, if any guy even looks at one of our guys sideways, Revo's right down his neck saying, you want a piece or what? I'm coming after you. I don't care if you turtle. I don't care. I'm coming after you. And just make those players that hate playing that style of game hate their life and say, you know what? I'll show up tomorrow night when I'm not in this barn. And that's what he's supposed to do. And if any of the big boys want to start something, he's obviously there. And he's proved his whole life he can do that. And he can play in the league. There's a reason he's still in the league. He's responsible on the walls. He can get it deep. He can forecheck it down. He knows how to get the cycle going. Like, he's responsible enough to be on this team. But what is your job? Everyone in the NHL does something really, really well that brings a major presence to the team. And we know what Ryan Reeves is, and he hasn't done it. And it's not just the fighting. Like, I'm very surprised he hasn't scrapped by Christmas yet. Morgan Riley, we were chuckling about how he's got more than Revo. It's kind of a surprise. And I honestly don't even care if he fights. It's the presence that he has on the ice of always patrolling, running your mouth. Like, he is the king of that league right now. There's 3 guys that can hang with him. I would be the cockiest, mouthiest prick in the world. I would intimidate every little skill player. I would make them go into a shell and just be like, I want nothing to do with this. I'm going to go home now and I'll try again tomorrow. That's what you want them to do, is just say, screw it. I'm not into this right now. I don't like this style of hockey. Give yourself a little bit of an edge. And I haven't even seen him do it once. A little bit disappointing. Not writing him off yet. But if you want to be in that lineup every night, Revo, you got to bring some presence.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's what you need from a guy like Ryan Reeves, too. I think we're going to hit on the power play after, so I'll leave that for us to pick apart here. But I guess disappointment for me, I'm going to kind of hit on two. I think Holmberg and obviously Kampf have just been vanilla all year. And guys that, like, especially in a role in a team where you've had some injuries and you've had a chance to really get guys up in the lineup and work your way in and get a chance to prove that you're ready to go and take that step. I just think at times where they've really needed, thank God for Mitch Marner, thank God for John Tavares, the way they've stepped up. Willie Nylander's been good all year. Yes, Austin Matthews, obviously he's been fighting injury, but when he's been in the lineup, it's a bit questionable. He's obviously fighting something off. But for these guys, this is like where you make your money in your contracts, right? You get an opportunity. Yes, you have to play a tough role. Yes, you're going to get pinned in a lot of defensive zone faceoffs. Yes, you're not getting that, but you have to earn that right to play there. And I feel like these are players that they're just so vanilla for me, right? And at times I feel like, Nick, I know a lot of times we beat our head against the wall about just some secondary scoring, right? There's nights where your big guys are going to have tough matchups and you need a little bit of depth. And I feel like it's just been so disappointing from those two. So across the board, those two, I think, need to be better, because at some point, I think someone's going to be moved out here as they try to add some depth as we get closer to the trade deadline.
And I think to your point, it's only fair, again, not to rag on people, but Mark Savard, I think it has been a big disappointment. This guy was brought in to run the power play and to make this power play a juggernaut again. And quite frankly, it just hasn't been the case. I don't know what's going to happen. There's been so many different dudes have had the opportunity to run this power play. So you can't just put it on Mark Savard, but they just don't have the magic formula. And ultimately, I hate to say this, but it could ultimately cost them the playoffs, which it has in the past when they can't score that extra power play goal when you need that big time goal in the playoffs. It has been a massive, massive disappointment thus far. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Indisputably, boys, the biggest topic of conversation in Leafs Nation right now is Austin Matthews. Despite all the injury concerns, going to Munich, going to see a doctor, still has 11 goals. Just shows you how filthy this guy truly is. It reminds me of the bum wrist season a couple years ago where he still managed to have 40 tucks. But I wanted to ask you guys this question, and Zach, we'll start with you. How should the Leafs handle this injury situation moving forward? Like, are you in favor of a complete shutdown for the next little while here?
Yeah, I am. The issue is, like, it seems like it's probably his back here, right? It takes the cross check against Buffalo. Gilbert, I think, was the defenseman who hits him low back. That obviously re-aggravates it, but he hadn't looked right ahead of then, goes to Germany to do this treatment, like comes back. It's only a month, whatever, 9 games that he missed, still doesn't look right. What is the point of going through a regular season and playing these games if you're not going to be at 100% health? Obviously, the team is much better with him than without him, no matter how many crazy ideas people might get here. But it's like you are not helping the team if you just wimp your way into the playoffs because you just had to play in the regular season, put up whatever numbers. They are going to be fine. They're going to make the playoffs, even if Austin Matthews doesn't play throughout the rest of the season. I strongly believe that. They've set themselves up here in a good spot so far to open this season. Take as long as you need. The Tampa Bay Lightning got to the playoffs without Nikita Kucherov playing and showed up day one of the playoffs. I know it's maybe a little bit of a different situation there, but like, take the time, get yourself healthy. Maybe it opens up cap space and you go pull a Vegas Golden Knights and go get somebody huge at the deadline. Like, who knows? But the ultimate, like the biggest, most important thing here is that he is ready to go day one of the playoffs. And I think if he forces his way back into this lineup through the regular season at anything less than 100%, I'm even talking 99, it is a waste of time and only hurts the Maple Leafs in the long run.
Yeah, and I think with the position they're in right now, as you mentioned, like where they are in the playoffs, how many wins they have, the kind of hockey they're playing, how much season is left. If you get up to, snugged up against the playoffs and this guy's still hurt and he hasn't taken the time to fix or to at least try to fix his problems, you're going to look back at the time before Christmas and say, what the hell were we doing? Like, we're screwed now. You need him. He's going to be the guy that is a big factor if they make a run. He's going to score the big goals. He's going to get the tie-up goal. He's going to score the first goal of the game. He's going to get the OT winner. Like, you need that guy in the lineup for those type of situations. And if you abuse him right now for absolutely no reason, you're winning without him. There's lots of runway left. You're in a good position in the standings. Like, there's absolutely no reason to be working this guy this hard. And I don't know, you go back to training camp and like heard it then at some point in time, I think they were saying, and then just rode him a little, and then he took some. I hate everything about it. And now that it's out in the open and it's clearly a problem, the biggest problem the Leafs have, let's just squash it by taking as much bloody time as you need to fix the problem, because we just can't be talking about this in April.
Yeah, I agree. I hate to fall in line here. I wish I had something to go against you guys, but it's 100% true, right? This is a superstar, and you have to treat him like a superstar, right? When playing in the league, like we always talk about, we're equal. Everyone gets the same thing. It doesn't work that way. This guy is an absolute stud, an absolute superstar. He makes a huge difference in your lineup, and you need him to be 100% healthy, because the other side of it, he plays hard minutes too. He's going to be matchup. He's going to have tough matchups, whether you get Boston, whether you get Florida. He's going to have to play on the other side of the puck too. You need him healthy. I think the biggest thing you look at right now is that Four Nations Cup too. And you say, I think if he's not even close, there's no chance he plays in it. Yes, it's disappointing. Yes, we want to play internationally, but winning a Stanley Cup for the Toronto Maple Leafs is #1 priority. So I think getting him healthy, do whatever you need to do, treat him like a superstar. And I think you have to take it out of his hands too, right? Because he's going to want to play. He's a competitor. You make sure he's healthy and ready to go before he steps back on the ice for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Hey, Hutz brought it up there, the Four Nations, and I kind of want to throw it out there just and get your quick thoughts on it, because I kind of got like shit on the other day bringing this up in After Dark show. Do you think there's an element here of like they won't LTIR him? This is like just going galaxy brain, but they won't LTIR him because he wants to play the Four Nations, and they're trying to be respectful of that. Like, this is not anything I know. I want to make sure that that's clear, because people in the chat watching are going to be like, this idiot. But I mean, it's something I thought about where I'm like, this is coming up quickly. Like, this is not March or farther away. This is in February here. He's going to want to play internationally. Are they just trying to be respectful? Like, we're not going to LTIR you so you can get yourself to the Four Nations. You can play there. Because, like, I think that's a ridiculous thing to have happen if that's the case.
I just genuinely think they don't really know how to tackle this injury, right? Like, even the way everything broke down, and, again, how rarely do you see somebody go overseas and nobody hears about or talks about, then all of a sudden the breaking news story comes out and he's in Munich, Germany? Like, I don't know. And we've been covering this team long enough, guys, where it's like, expect the unexpected. When they say day to day, it can be month to month. The guy could be out for 17 years. He could be on Robidoux Island. You just don't know. And that's more so what concerns me, guys, about this story is we really don't know. Like Craig Berube, similar to Sheldon Keefe, not disclosing much. I mean, Rosie and Hutz, you played in the NHL. You know the PR training behind all this. Nobody's going to say anything. But I won't lie, and I brought this up on Leafs Morning Take, Rosie. Remember when I was like, Morgan Riley addressed it as a serious injury? I think that's the first time, to my recollection, the word serious has been used attached to Austin Matthews' injury. And Rosie, that concerns me. I'll be honest about it.
Yeah, and I don't think that the conversations they're having, I mean, hindsight's 2020. You can look back and say, oh, maybe you shouldn't have came in and played that, but nobody knows what's going to happen. No one is in his body. Like Hutz mentioned, he's a competitor. He wants to get out there, taking enough time on. He's getting heat in the media. They found out he's in Germany. I feel like I'm definitely better than I was. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to play. I think I can do it. And it's going to keep getting better as I play. And maybe that doesn't come to fruition. Nobody knows that at the time, but I just picture them sitting on the training table, trainers, doctors around. I don't think the word, what about Four Nations Cup? I don't think that even comes into the conversation. I don't think they care about that. They're the Maple Leafs. I don't think Austin brings it up. When you're sitting in the Maple Leafs training room and you're talking to the Maple Leafs doctors, you're talking about the Maple Leafs and you're not talking about your dick around tournament down the road. Everyone knows that's there, but I think it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And no one's saying, well, we should probably change our plan because of the Four Nations Cup. I just don't believe that. When you're in that room, it's all about the Maple Leafs. And I think that whatever decision they decide has got to be the right one for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I agree. And I played with guys that made Olympic teams and they don't even talk about it, right? It's almost like a congrats and then you're back to business, right? There's so much pressure. But my example of this would be like the Jack Eichel scenario I went through when I was in Buffalo, right? I think that relationship was a lot different than what Austin has with the Toronto Maple Leafs. But I think that is why you're seeing him go to Germany. That's why you're seeing him do these other treatments to get himself healthy, because nowadays players have a unique way of viewing their body and the way they take care of themselves. not just dealing with, the medical staff of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I think they're being open-minded to it, but at the same time trying to walk that line to do what's best for Austin Matthews. Because trust me, their players now have way more confidence in themselves than what they do. Like Rosie, when we came in the league, we were like, hey, whatever you need me to do, I'll do, right? We just fell in line because we wanted to fit in. Where younger players now have a lot more confidence and they have teams surrounding them, their own treatment, their own people, where they're getting guidance outside of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I feel like they're just trying to make sure that relationship is fluid so they know everything that goes on with Austin.
And to Zach's point, I do think this is a polarizing moment early on in the tenure as captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs for Austin Matthews. I'm almost at a point where it's like, hey, you've got to make a determination, man. If you can't go, you got to raise your hand and be like, I can't play. Sorry, States. I want to be there. But the Toronto Maple Leafs, I want to win a Stanley Cup. I almost want to hear that from the mouth of Austin Matthews. Come out and say, hey, I'm not going to the Four Nations. My mind is on the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's on winning a Stanley Cup. You're probably not going to get that, but I honestly think this is like a sneaky big decision that they have to make in the next couple of weeks, just considering he can't stay healthy, hasn't stayed healthy all season long. So we'll see how it breaks down from that standpoint. Before we wrap, guys, I think it's only fair, a bit of a Christmas wish list. If you're Brad Tree living around the holiday season, what are you looking at between now and the March 7th trade deadline? Zach, we'll start with you. What are you looking for?
This one I went back and forth on a bunch. There's a lot of different options I think you could go with, and I was thinking about like players. Is that the direction I want to go? The one I want is if I were to wake up tomorrow and I got this under the Christmas tree, the one thing that I want is a successful power play. It's not regular season. It is not a regular season issue. Think about every year over the last like 4 or 5 years, what has happened with this team come playoff time. The power play falls off. The playoffs is so hard to score 5-on-5 at even strength. It tightens up like you never even imagine. And it's like every time you get an opportunity here at an odd man situation, it's not 100%, but you need to find ways to score goals. Think about the Edmonton power play last year on their cup run, or their run to the cup finals against Florida. Their power play was flying. The Leafs, atrocious, like worst in the playoffs. If you can wake up tomorrow and find a way to get this power play clicking and not just scoring goals, but actually the process being there, looking like they have a sense of urgency, being just this lethal threat that other teams don't want to take penalties against, that I think puts you so far ahead in terms of where you could be having success and seeing success throughout the remainder of the regular season and then into the playoffs this year. So that is like the biggest wish list for me, because that even just goes beyond just this season. This is years of frustration with that group.
Yeah, you took my pick there, so I will pivot quickly, and I'm going to look for a healthy roster, right? I feel like all year we've been missing guys. We've been trying to just play a little game of Tetris, seeing what fits here, what fits there. I think just seeing who's healthy and what they have depth-wise, right, for an extended amount of time, right? We pass judgment on players playing outside their role, trying to find guys at center. This guy's bouncing around everywhere. It'll be nice to see a healthy roster, right? I think all year we've been missing players. Guys have been in and out of the lineup. So I think just getting a little bit of health, hopefully this little break can get some guys some time off to get ready to go. And I think once we see what we have, at least there'll be an extended amount of time until the trade deadline. Then we really know where this Toronto Maple Leafs team is at.
Yeah, my wish is just to keep on, performing in a way that creates an identity, and I think they're trying to do that under Craig Berube. Like they mentioned, it's been said that's not going to happen overnight. There's going to be some growing pains, and maybe there have been, but I think it's gone pretty smoothly, the transition to Craig Berube. But for the rest of the season, I would love for them to continue to put those building blocks together where when the playoffs hit, they're standing on the cliff like the 300 Army, and they're just like, we know exactly who we are. We know exactly what to do. We don't give a shit who's down there. We're just going to roll everyone, and the confidence is through the roof, and they're like, drop the goddamn puck because we know exactly what we're doing, and they just go on this crusade to tear through the league and get to the Eastern Finals and try to take that down and get to the Stanley Cup Finals and get to the ultimate goal. You have to have a ton of confidence in everything clicking. Everyone knows who they are when that happens. I think they're kind of on their way to doing that, but I want them to really continue that. And if that means adding personnel and, beefing up the bottom six or whatever it is, I'm fine with. But to me, it's a mentality like before, when they go into the playoffs, they're kind of biting their nails and almost worried and hoping, and it's just not conducive to domination. I want them to get that ship behind them, have nothing but confidence, knowing what they're doing. And I keep bringing up the Panthers over the last couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
but that's who you got to mold yourself after. That's who does it to a T. They're well coached. They know who they are. Everyone buys in and they say, let's fucking go through this playoffs. And they have nothing but success because of it.
Personally, I'd like a time capsule because I want to get to the Stanley Cup playoffs, but sadly, I cannot have that. I can't believe you guys left it for me, but I want a center. If I'm Brad Treliving, I want another top 9 center, whether it's Brock Nelson, who we saw over the weekend, we're going to see a couple times over the next little while. Scotty Lawton, who's got some term left, I think would be a perfect fit, but I don't know if Philadelphia is in a rush to let him go. Yanni Gord's going to be in that conversation. I think there's going to be a variety of different routes, but I would really like to solidify the position up the middle and move Max Domi back to the wing. I know he's back to center, but I think in the decision-making process, long-term, it makes sense to season Fraser Minton at the American Hockey League level, and I've got no issue with that. But I think, to that point, you need to pick up somebody else, and we'll see what they do between now, again, March 7th, the NHL trade deadline. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. Over the next couple days, any bets that you guys specifically are looking at? I'm not a big football guy. I'll watch some basketball, but I'll take Canada to win the World Junior Gold. That's a long-term look. But anything specifically you guys are looking at here?
Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah,
Jackie,
like
you're the
that as
Batman.
well.
I'm just going to tail one that you gave me a long time ago. So you just go ahead here.
All right, hear me out. This is a little bit of ways away, but you'd rather get on it now, okay? This is for people wake up on Christmas. This is what you're going to look for. You're going to go to your Bet365 account, and you're going to head on over to the Four Nations, and you're going to start to dig around there. It may not be, available in some of the spots on Christmas Day, but over the next couple of days, you're going to take this tidbit away, and you're going to start looking. First, you're going to be looking at Sweden to win the Four Nations. It's a short tournament. It's a quick tournament. They're like 5-1 in some different spots there. I like that because you just get one win that you weren't supposed to, or you were an underdog in.
There.
Tournament's flipped on its head, and then you get yourself into a semi. Bang. Next thing you know, Sweden can win that thing. The second one, this comes back to the Leafs here, boys. You're going to find MVP markets, and you're going to go to a guy on Sweden. He's number 88 on the Toronto Maple Leafs, William Nylander, to win the MVP. If we're looking at Sweden to win this thing, you're probably going to get the MVP from that team. Who's a guy who shows up in clutch moments, a guy who loves playing for his country, who goes over to the World Championships every year. It's William Nylander. The guy is absolutely on fire this season. He's been lighting it up here in the NHL. I think he only takes that and goes to international hockey and turns it up another notch. William Nylander, MVP, and Sweden to win it. I want Canada to win it. Let's be clear about that. But if you're betting on this and they're not going to win it, I'd rather have the money on Sweden and say, you know what, fine, we got the money in the pocket because Sweden won it.
I'll be short and sweet here. Tomorrow you're going to wake up. It's Christmas morning. There's presents everywhere, and Patrick Holmes is going to be slinging that ball. He knows everybody on Christmas Day is going to be watching him. The line's -2.5 against the Steelers. He's going to cover that game, so I would take that -2.5 line because it's Santa Claus and it's Mahomes time.
I guess Hutz wasn't aware that we're actually airing this show on Christmas Day, but nevertheless, you will wake up at some point in time, whether it's the 25th, 26th, 27th. So a bit of precursor on Netflix, right? I like that, Hutz. I like it.
There we go. That's all. We got one out there.
I'm going to shock people by seeing my account here. I've got a Mitch Marner at plus 10,000 future to win the Art Ross Trophy. Me and Zachy riding that baby. They're bribing me with a little early cash out here. That's not even close to what I started with, but he's coming around.
What does that cost? About $15 million a season?
Good value, boys.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Thank you so much for doing this today. There you have it, boys. Not even a Merry Christmas back, but nevertheless, Jay Rosehill, Carter Hutton, Zack Phillips.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Thank you to producer Vic for putting this together. Thank you to everybody in the chat. All season long, you guys have been fantastic. At the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. See you later. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.